Mr. Carrington. I know this sounds strange, but we brought you cookies. Cookies? At this hour? And cocoa. My mom says nobody should be alone on Christmas. He hadn't opened that door for anyone in 5 long years. Not since the night his fiancée vanished without a goodbye. But that knock, that tiny voice behind the door, would uncover the biggest secret of his life. And when the truth finally came out, it would change 3 lives forever. You're watching Story, where real emotions meet unforgettable storytelling. If you're new here, welcome to our family of listeners who believe that every story hides a lesson, and every heartbreak hides hope. To our returning subscribers, thank you for turning simple words into moments that matter. If this story already has your heart leaning forward, don't forget to tap the like button. Every Christmas Eve, Daniel Carrington followed a ritual as predictable as the ticking of the clock on his wall. At exactly 9 o'clock, the city beneath his penthouse glowed like a field of fallen stars, streetlights, windows, headlights all shimmering through the snow. Daniel stood alone, one hand tucked in his pocket, the other holding a glass of 20-year-old scotch that never made it past his lips. From the 42nd floor he could see the world celebrating. Families gathered around trees, children squealed near fireplaces, lovers exchanged gifts under mistletoe. He had everything a man could want: power, wealth, a name printed in magazines, and yet his apartment felt like a museum of things untouched by life. The only sound was the faint hum of the heater and the slow drip of melting ice in his glass. Daniel wasn't waiting for Santa or even for company. He was waiting for something he couldn't name. Maybe forgiveness. Maybe a miracle. Maybe the echo of the voice he lost 5 Christmases ago. Emily Rhodes. The woman he loved. The woman who disappeared on a snowy night before they ever made it to I do. The police had called it an accident. But how does love just vanish? Daniel never found her car, her body, or the peace to move on. Each year, on the anniversary of her disappearance, he'd whisper to the window, "Another year, Em. Still here." And as the city clock struck 9, he whispered it again. The lights flickered and the snow outside thickened like fog. Then, 3 sharp knocks broke the silence. At first, Daniel thought he imagined it. No one ever visited him, especially not on Christmas Eve. His building had more security than a federal vault, and even his board of directors knew better than to call him after hours. But the knock came again, soft then firmer. He set down his glass, his heart ticking faster than the clock. When he opened the door, a rush of cold air hit him like a memory. There stood a woman in her late 20s, snowflakes clinging to her hair, holding a tray wrapped in foil. Beside her, a small boy barely 7 hugged a red thermos to his chest. "Mr. Carrington? We're so sorry to disturb you. The power went out in our unit, and, well, my son insisted we bring the neighbors cookies. And cocoa. Real chocolate chips." For a moment Daniel just stared. 2 strangers, framed in the golden light of his hallway, looking as if they'd stepped out of the Christmas he'd forgotten. "You brought cookies? To me?" "Yes, sir. My son believes no one should be alone tonight." The boy's mittens were too big, the woman's coat threadbare. They looked nothing like the polished guests Daniel once entertained. Yet something in their eyes, open, kind, unguarded, made him step aside. "Come in. It's cold out there." He didn't know why he said it. Maybe because the warmth in their faces reminded him what it felt like to be human. Inside, the penthouse was silent except for the faint crackle of the fireplace. Eli's eyes widened. "Mom? This place looks like a hotel." "That's because no one ever checks in." "Well, we'll change that." She placed the cookies on his marble counter. Slightly burnt edges, soft centers. The smell filled the sterile space with something it had long forgotten: warmth. "You really made these yourself?" "Eli did. I supervised. I taste tested." Daniel laughed, a dry, cracked sound like something breaking open. He hadn't laughed in 5 years. "We'll get out of your way now. Or, you could stay. I have extra cocoa cups. Haven't used them in years." She hesitated, then nodded. And just like that, the walls around his heart shifted. 3 strangers. 1 table. 2 cups of cocoa. But the silence that once suffocated him now felt different. Not empty. Just waiting. If this story already has your heart softening, hit that like button. It helps more people find stories that remind us of what really matters: love, hope, and second chances. They stayed longer than either expected. The clock drifted past 10, then 11. Hannah told him she was a freelance illustrator who moved into the building just 2 weeks ago. Work was slow, rent was high, but she had her son, and that made every day worth it. Daniel listened more than he spoke. He noticed the faint scar above her wrist, the way she adjusted her scarf when nervous, the way her son's laughter filled every corner of the room. We don't have much, but we try to make the season feel special. It's our little tradition, to bring cookies to neighbors. How many have you delivered tonight? 6 boxes. Well, 5.5. I ate one. Daniel smiling, you're efficient. What does that mean? Smart. Like an inventor. Cool. I want to invent things too. Daniel's chest warmed. He hadn't talked about inventions or dreams in years. He used to build gadgets with Emily, silly things like self-stirring mugs and motion-activated lights. Back then, laughter had filled his home like sunlight. Now he was hearing it again. Hannah caught him staring at the boy with something close to wonder. He has that effect on people. Eli doesn't just walk into a room, he changes it. Daniel nodded, unable to disagree. The boy was light, pure, effortless light. As the evening faded, Eli started to nod off in the chair. We should head home. He's falling asleep mid-cookie. Let me walk you down. That's kind of you, but we'll be fine. Bye, Mr. Carrington. Good night, champ. When the elevator doors closed behind them, Daniel stood there watching the reflection fade. The silence returned, but not the same kind. This one had warmth in it. And for the first time in years, Daniel didn't pour another drink. He poured hope instead. Over the next few weeks, something strange began to happen. Daniel's once sterile penthouse began to show signs of life. Paper snowflakes appeared on his door, courtesy of Eli. Small drawings, signed E+M, started appearing in his mail slot. And Hannah? She became a quiet, steady presence. Sometimes she'd drop by to return a borrowed book, sometimes to ask his opinion on an illustration. Daniel found himself rearranging his schedule, meetings postponed, dinners skipped, just in case they knocked again. One Sunday afternoon he invited them both for lunch. Eli ran straight to the piano and pressed the keys. It sounds like rainbows. Eli, careful. That's expensive. It's fine. I haven't heard music in this house for years. That was true. The last time someone touched that piano was the night Emily played Silent Night. But now, under Eli's tiny fingers, the sound returned, imperfect, joyful, alive. Do you know how to play, Mr. Carrington? I used to. Then play with me. And so he did. And so he did. 2 clumsy sets of hands, one small, one large, filled the room with laughter instead of sorrow. Hannah watched from the kitchen, smiling softly, her eyes shimmering in the winter light. Later that day, as snow fell outside, she asked quietly, "Do you ever leave the city for Christmas?" "No. There's nothing waiting for me anywhere else. Sometimes, what we're waiting for is right in front of us." He didn't respond, but her words stayed with him. Over the next few days, Daniel began doing things differently. He started visiting the office less and the local bakery more, where Hannah worked part-time. He donated coats anonymously to the building's maintenance staff. Even his employees noticed. "The boss smiles now," they whispered. But every night as he stood by his window watching snow fall, his thoughts drifted to Emily. Could he ever love again without betraying her memory? Then he'd remember Eli's laughter and Hannah's gentle eyes, and he'd whisper, "Maybe love doesn't die, it just changes form." As Christmas approached, Daniel invited them again, this time for dinner. The table that once hosted executives and investors now held 3 mismatched plates, a roast chicken and laughter. "You cook, Mr. Carrington?" "Barely. But I'm improving." He's showing off. He ordered that chicken from the restaurant downstairs. You weren't supposed to tell him. The laughter that followed didn't sound borrowed. It sounded like home. After dinner, Eli ran to the tree and pointed. "Your tree looks sad, Mr. Carrington." "Sad?" "Yeah. It has no one to play with." Daniel chuckled. But as Eli ran off to fetch his crayons, Hannah whispered, "He's right, you know. Sometimes even trees need company." When they left that night, Daniel noticed something new. A small drawing taped to the bottom of his Christmas tree, a stick-figure man standing beside a woman and a child under falling snow. 3 smiles. 3 hearts. One caption written in shaky letters, "Mr. C's family." Daniel stood there for a long time, staring at it. He didn't know why, but tears filled his eyes. Maybe because for the first time in years he wasn't looking at what he'd lost. He was looking at what he'd found. If this story is touching your heart, drop it in the comments and tell us. Do you believe broken people can find family again? Your answers might inspire someone who needs hope tonight. The following week, the world turned gold and white. Christmas lights flooded the streets. Carolers filled the corners of the city with voices that carried joy and ache in equal measure. Daniel's penthouse, once hollow, now shimmered with color, paper ornaments from Eli, watercolor sketches from Hannah, a single snow globe sitting beside a framed photo of Emily. It was New Year's Eve. The kind of night where every sound felt sharper, every silence heavier. Hannah had brought over dinner again, insisting he shouldn't spend the holiday alone. After the meal, when Eli had fallen asleep on the couch, Hannah pulled something from her bag. "I made you something." She handed him a small envelope. Inside was a charcoal portrait, Daniel's face, drawn with haunting precision. Lines of sadness softened by light. Behind his eyes she had sketched faint shapes, a woman and a child like shadows in memory. "It's how Eli sees you. Someone who looks sad but safe. You're incredibly talented." Emily thought so too. The name hit him like thunder. "What did you just say?" "Emily? How do you know that name?" Hannah froze, her hand still clutching the edge of the couch. He rose slowly, walking to the piano where the photo frame stood. "This Emily?" "Yes." The air between them went still, as if time itself stopped to listen. "Who are you, Hannah?" "She was my sister." And in that instant, the world that Daniel had carefully rebuilt cracked open once again. The woman who had brought him back to life was the sister of the woman whose loss had broken him. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The city lights outside blurred like tears pressed against glass. "You knew her?" "I didn't just know her. I loved her. She raised me after our parents passed. She was my world." Hannah's voice shook as she went on. She told him about the night Emily disappeared. About the call she never received. About how she waited at the window for her sister to come home. "I was 18. She was driving to meet you that night, wasn't she?" "Yes. We had an argument earlier that day. She said she had something important to tell me. I never found out what." Hannah nodded slowly, her eyes glistening. "She was pregnant, Daniel?" The word struck him like a blow to the chest. "Pregnant? She never told you." "She was scared, she thought you'd see it as a burden." He staggered back a step, the room spinning. The portrait in his hand crumpled slightly. "I wouldn't have cared. I loved her. I would have." The crash report said she went off the highway. They never found her body. Weeks later, I got a letter with her locket and a birth certificate. Stillborn male. Daniel's knees buckled. He sat down, hands trembling. "But I never believed it. I felt it in my bones, that she had given birth, and that the baby survived." Daniel looked up, his voice breaking. "Hannah, what are you saying?" "A month later, I found a baby left at the steps of our church. Wrapped in Emily's old blanket. No note, no explanation, just a single word pinned to the cloth." "What word?" "Eli." The world went silent again. The sound of the fireplace dimmed. Even the wind outside seemed to hold its breath. "You're telling me Eli is your son, and my sister's?" Daniel covered his face with his hands, his entire body trembling. Years of loneliness, guilt, and grief collapsed into one unbearable truth. Emily had left him one last gift. A piece of her still alive, still laughing, still drawing paper rockets in his living room. Hannah's eyes filled with tears. "I didn't know how to tell you. When we met, I didn't plan any of this. I just didn't want to lose him again." Daniel stood and turned toward the sleeping boy on the couch. Tiny, peaceful, the very image of innocence. He knelt beside him, brushing a strand of hair from his forehead. "Emily, you found a way to bring him back to me." Tears fell freely, not of pain but of something deeper, gratitude. For the first time, Daniel didn't feel cursed by loss. He felt chosen, to finish the love story that fate had paused too soon. In the days that followed, the truth hung between them like a fragile ornament. Hannah avoided eye contact. Daniel canceled meetings, stopped answering calls, and spent his days staring at the snow drifting past his windows. He had waited 5 years for closure, and now that it was here, it didn't feel like peace. It felt like standing in the middle of a storm, holding the pieces of 2 lives that never got to finish. On the 3rd day, Hannah came to his door again. Her eyes were red, her coat half-zipped, Eli waiting behind her with his backpack. "We're moving, Daniel. I didn't plan this and I don't want to confuse him." "Leaving? You can't just." "You deserve to know the truth, but I can't stay here pretending nothing changed. I lied to you even if it was for the right reason." Daniel's voice softened. "You didn't lie, Hannah. You protected him, and maybe in some way you protected me too. He thinks of you as the nice neighbor who makes the best cocoa. I can't take that memory and turn it into confusion." Hannah looked away, her eyes shimmering. "You already are, Daniel. You just don't need the title to prove it." Eli tugged on his coat sleeve, looking up at him. "Mr. Carrington, are you sad?" A little. Mom says sad people just need hugs. The boy wrapped his arms around Daniel's neck. And in that moment, every empty Christmas, every silent night, every unspoken prayer, melted. When they left, Daniel didn't stop them. He stood at the window watching them fade into the snow, the same way Emily had 5 years ago. But this time he didn't feel abandoned. He felt trusted. Because love, he realized, wasn't about possession. It was about presence. About showing up even when it hurt. The next morning, a small box sat on his doorstep. Inside was the drawing Eli had made, the one that said Mr. C's family. And beneath it, a note written in Hannah's careful handwriting. Some families are chosen. Thank you for choosing us. If this story has moved you, take a moment to share it. You never know whose heart might need a reminder that family isn't always blood. Sometimes it's love showing up at your door. A full year passed. Snow returned to the city, blanketing rooftops like icing on old memories. But this Christmas, Daniel Carrington wasn't alone. His company Helix One had launched a nonprofit, the Emily Project, to support single mothers and children in need. His penthouse had changed too. Gone were the empty shelves and gray walls. In their place hung Hannah's paintings and Eli's latest paper rocket. As the clock neared 9, Daniel placed 3 mugs of cocoa on the table. One for him, one for Hannah, one for Eli. Is it time for the trick, Mr. Carrington? Almost. What trick? You'll see. As the clock struck 9, there came a sound. Knock. 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 Hannah turned puzzled. Every Christmas I used to wait for a knock that never came. This year, I invited the neighbors instead. Cookies ready? Together they opened the door. Outside stood a young couple, shivering in the snow, holding a plate of gingerbread. Merry Christmas. Nobody should be alone tonight. Laughter filled the air as they welcomed the couple inside. Daniel looked at Hannah, the woman who had unknowingly healed him, and at Eli, the son he never knew he had. The circle was complete. Turns out, it feels a lot like home. Maybe every closed door is just waiting for the right knock. Maybe miracles don't arrive wrapped in gold, but in the quiet sound of small hands knocking, and hearts brave enough to answer. That night, Daniel didn't wait for the past to return. He opened the door to the future. The lesson here is simple, and yet it's everything. Forgiveness isn't forgetting the pain. It's choosing to turn pain into purpose. Family isn't always who you're born to. Sometimes, it's who God sends to remind you that love never really leaves. And even when the world feels silent, there's always someone knocking, waiting for you to let them in. If this story touched your heart, drop it in the comments and tell us. What door in your life needs to be opened again? Share this video with someone who needs hope tonight. And if you haven't yet, subscribe to Substory, where every week, we bring you stories that heal, inspire, and remind you that no one is truly alone. Until next time, stay warm, stay kind, and remember, sometimes hope doesn't walk in. It knocks.